Therefore, I suggest we're going to chant text 28 together. And I see you have mobile phones. If you can just open text 28 of the 20th chapter, 5th canto. Just tell me when you found the verse. Do you have a mobile phone with you?
No. Not working.
Not working. Are you connected with your phone to the internet? No? 28 of the 20th chapter. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Jairam Narottamam Devim Sarasvatim Vyasam Tatocha Yamudirayet Nastapeshu Abhateshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. So I'm going to read the translations to texts 24 to 27 and then we chant 28 together. Text 24. Outside the ocean of milk is another island, Shakadvipa, which has a width of 3,200,000 yojanas, which equals 25,600,000 miles. As Kraunchadvip is surrounded by its own ocean of milk, Shakadvip is surrounded by an ocean of churned yogurt as broad as the island itself. In Shakadvip there is a big shaka tree from which the island takes its name. This tree is very fragrant. Indeed, it lends its scent to the entire island. Text 25. The master of this island, also one of the sons of Priyarata, was known as Metatiti. Metatiti. He also divided his island into 7 sections, named according to the names of his own sons, whom he made the kings of that island. The names of those sons are Purjava, Manojava, Pavamana, Dumranika, Chitrayepa, Bahurupa, and Vishwadhar. After dividing the island and situating his sons as its rulers, Metatiti personally retired, and to fix his mind completely upon the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he entered a forest suitable for meditation. Text 26. For these lands also there are 7 boundary mountains and 7 rivers. The mountains are Ishana, Urushinga, Balabhacha, Shatakesara, Sahasrasota, Devapala, and Mahanasa. The rivers are Anaga, Ayurda, Upayasprishti, Aparachita, Panchapadi, Sahasrasroti, and Nichatriti. Text 27. The inhabitants of those islands are also divided into 4 castes: Ritavrata, Satyavrata, Dhanavrata, and Anuvrata, which exactly resemble Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Sudra. They practice pranayama and mystic yoga, and in trance they worship the Supreme Lord in the form of Vayu. So now text 28, which we can chant together. And 28 is not on the board. We have 22 on the board. 24. Anta pravishya bhutani. Anta pravishya bhutani. Yobi bhat atma ketubihi. Yobi Bhatyatma Ketubihi Antayamishvara Sakshat Antayamishvara Sakshat Patu no Yatvase Sputam Patu no Yatvase Sputam Anta Pravishya Bhutani Yobi Bhatyatma Ketubihi Antayamishvara Sakshat Patu no Yatvase Sputam. Anyone would like to chant? Anta Pravishya Bhutani Yobi Bhatyatma Ketubihi Anta Pravishya Bhutani Yobi Bhatyatma Ketubihi Antayamishvara Sakshat Patu no Yatvase Sputam. Thank you. Anta Pravishya, entering within. Bhutani, all living entities. Yaha, who. Vibharti, maintains. Atma Ketubihi, by the functions of the inner airs. Prana, Apana, etc. Antayami, the super soul within. Ishvaraha, the supreme person. Sakshat, directly. Patu, please maintain. Naha, us. Yatvase, under whose control. Sputam, the cosmic manifestation. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The inhabitants of Shakatvipa worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the form of Vayu in the following words. O Supreme Person, situated as the Supersoul within the body, you direct the various actions of the different airs, such as prana, and thus you maintain all living entities. O Lord, O Supersoul of everyone, O Controller of the cosmic manifestation, under whom everything exists, may you protect us from all dangers. Purport. To the mystic yoga practice called pranayama, the yogi controls the airs within the body to maintain the body in a healthy condition. In this way, the yogi comes to the point of trance and tries to see the supersoul within the core of his heart. Pranayama is the means to attain samadhi, trance, in order to fully absorb oneself in seeing the Supreme Lord as Antayami, the supersoul within the core of the heart. End of purport. Om Ajnanatimidandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Jakshun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Si Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Svapratantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sakachatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sachivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parichana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripaye. Pancha Kalpatarupyascha Kripasindupya Evacha. Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Devotional service is so beautiful because it engages all our senses. So while being in Bhagavatam class, we can use our sense of touch to make some wonderful service in packing these envelopes for our congregation. So again, the verse, text 28. Antra pravishya bhutani yobi bhat atmaketu bihi antayamishvara sakshat patuno yat vases putam. The inhabitants of Shakadweep worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the form of Vayu in the following words. O Supreme Person, situated as the Supersoul within the body, you direct the various actions of the different airs, such as prana, and thus you maintain all living entities. O Lord, O Supersoul of everyone, O controller of the cosmic manifestation, under whom everything exists, may you protect us from all dangers. In 2010, there was a Harvard study which concluded that 47% of our time, our mind is wandering. So during our waking hours, almost 50% of the time, we are not present in what we are doing. My question to you, what are you doing right now? Where are you present?
Making letters.
Good. How about hearing? That goes Perla?
Yeah, normally. We do that once a year or so.
Okay. So you're trained in this. So almost 50% of the time, our mind is not present in what we're doing, which means the mind is wandering in the past, or it's making already plans for the future. And this study concluded that a mind who is always absent-minded is not a happy mind. And Krishna says the same in the beginning of the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, that the uncontrolled mind is like an enemy to the living being. There's no happiness if the mind has no peace. So therefore, if one wants to become happy, then one has to learn to control the mind. And this is what Krishna concludes about the practice of meditation, that it begins by controlling the mind. And the way how to do is to detach the mind from material enjoyment and to take up the process of devotional service or Krishna consciousness to give the mind a positive direction. So let's quickly explore the framework of the mind. Because usually when we speak about the mind, we think that's some kind of faculty or facility which we cannot really grasp because the mind is subtle. But the mind is a very systematic machine which we have, a function which we have to actually achieve the aim of life, because the purified mind, or let's say it like this, the uncontrolled mind leads to bondage, whereas the purified or liberated mind leads to liberation. So I'm gonna ask you still some questions to make sure that we keep connection. Yeah. So when you hear the mind, what comes to your mind?
Turbulence.
Turbulence. What else comes to your mind when you hear the word mind?
Confusion.
Confusion. Anything positive in relation to the mind?
Power.
Power. Yeah.
Intelligence?
Yes. So the mind is actually a very powerful tool if we know how to use it properly. And we find within Vedic psychology a very detailed description about the nature of the mind. Because the mind has various instances which connect the living being with the external world. So they are sense objects, things which you can perceive with our senses, which you can see, which you can smell, which you can hear, which you can touch. So therefore, Krishna explained that the senses, they are grouped around the mind. With our senses, we perceive the world. And the mind is the first instance who decides what to do with these sense impressions. But that kind of mind, which we could also say that's manas, is a very simple function of the mind. It's like just a binary function. It's an emotional mind, which has two functions, namely to accept or reject. This I like, this I don't like. Just two options, either or. So that's the emotional mind. But then behind that emotional mind or manas, there is buddhi, intelligence, which is more like the inner mind. Because with intelligence, we can decide what is favorable, what is unfavorable. It's like a filter. We decide what we allow to enter into our deeper consciousness. Now, how do we strengthen that buddhi, that inner mind? How would you do that? Chanting. What else? Meditating. And what else?
Love.
Again?
Love.
Love, okay. So Krishna, he suggests to absorb that intelligence or buddhi in transcendental knowledge. Because by knowledge or wisdom, we can make proper decisions. If we don't know what would be proper to do, then most probably we fall to our default mode, which may not always be in our best interest. So far we have established there are sense objects, there are senses which are grouped around the mind, and that mind, that's manas, just an emotional instance which decides what I like and what I don't like. But on the top of that, there is buddhi, or intelligence, which acts like a filter, where we can decide what is favorable, what is unfavorable. And to strengthen our buddhi, we absorb ourselves in transcendental knowledge. Above all of those is ahankara, our false ego, or our identity. Like if we wouldn't have an identity, it would be very difficult to act in this world. And we have not just one identity, we have different identities. As a husband, as a wife, as a mother, as a father, as a devotee, as a non-devotee, whatever. So different identities which direct what would be the proper action according to my function. Now, when it's getting interesting is when we come to the next deeper level, which is citta, which is the subconscious mind. And that's like the storage of all information which we have accumulated over many, many lifetimes. So we have like an internal hard disk where practically all information about our existence in this material world is saved. Now just imagine you would have access to this hard disk and could see all that information from your previous lives. Would you be interested in that?
Yeah.
You are?
Yeah.
So why did Krishna give us not that facility to access that information?
That we will not repeat the mistakes.
Okay, that we don't repeat the mistakes.
If you don't know what you did wrong, you don't repeat it.
Maybe it could be a little bit confusing also, if we would have that kind of, let's say like a movie of all our past lives. It may become difficult to be properly situated in one identity in this life here. But even we don't have direct access in that chitta or subconscious mind, there are samskaras. All these sense impressions which we have gathered over these many lifetimes, they are stored there. And because we repeated certain activities over a prolonged time, they formed into vasanas. Vasanas is like a habit, something which we do on autopilot. Yeah? Now, the buddhi plays again, the intelligence plays an important function, because we said it's like a filter. So the buddhi decides what goes into the subconscious mind and also what goes out from the subconscious mind into our direct perception. So therefore, transcendental knowledge is so important. That we do not put more unfavorable information into the subconscious mind, but actually, through the process of devotional service, we create new samskaras, new impressions, which are more favorable. Which means they lead to a higher consciousness. So you see how complete and complex the mind actually is. It's not just that external mind grouped around the senses, but there's an inner function and there's even a subconscious mind. And once we understand that complexity, then we can deal with the mind in a different way. Because the mind is not a problem. The mind is a tool which we have to learn how to use properly. And therefore the process of meditation is recommended to calm that mind, to focus that mind, to be attentive in what we're doing in the present moment. And then, as Krishna says, then the mind becomes a friend. Because it's a powerful tool, as Prabhu said before, to elevate our consciousness to Krishna consciousness, to liberate ourselves from material conditioning. Now, easier said than done. We understand things in philosophy, but then in practice, we are faced with challenges. As we said, these samskaras, like the storage which we have for many lifetimes, makes us act in a certain default mode. And often it's against our best interest. So therefore, we engage in devotional service and we create new impressions in the mind. Now, because the mind by default is absent-minded, the mind likes to go to the past and to the future and not being so much focused on the present. Therefore, we have the tendency to give more focus on negative impressions than on positive. Because with the past, we lament of what has happened or what has not happened. And usually when it's about the future, we are anxious about what might happen or might not happen. We are usually not so excited about, wow, these are the possibilities which are going to open up in my life. More because of uncertainty, we step into negative emotions. And therefore, the mind is so much dominated by fear, by anxieties, by comparison. And we can say that's the small mind. We remain very limited in our perception of the world. We see the world through this lens of that negatively influenced mind. And therefore Krishna says, for that uncontrolled mind, there is no happiness. But there's also a big mind. The big mind who is aligned with higher principles. The big mind which has awareness about one's own self and reality. The big mind who lives in connection with others. So what we actually want to achieve to make that journey from the small mind to the big mind. And that's practically the process of habit formation. To create new impressions which serve us in a better way than what others did in the past. And as we said, the mind, with this binary function, like the external mind, is very much emotionally directed. So therefore, what we want to look at is at our emotions. Krishna consciousness is actually all about emotions, to transform our emotions from negative to positive. That process is also called anatta nivritti. Anatta means those things which has no worth. And nivritti, to get rid of them. But Krishna consciousness is not a form of therapy, where we lie on a couch and we tell all our problems. Krishna consciousness, as Krishna says himself, it's susukham. It's joyfully performed. Therefore, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he advises that we should practice Artha Pravritti. We should focus on the positive and cultivate that. How do you feel about your cultivation of Krishna consciousness? Is it a constant struggle, or is there some joy in what you're doing? Do you feeling joyful doing this service at the moment? You should.
75% joy, and there's some struggle in there.
That's a good balance.
Try to keep it positive so you don't lose.
Yeah. So that's a good balance. 75% blissful, 25% we still have to deal with some stuff. Yeah. If it would be the other way around, it would be very difficult to stay in Krishna consciousness. Because who wants to suffer? Then there's so many other opportunities in this world how to enjoy. So Krishna consciousness means to make that shift from the small mind to the big mind, to transform our emotions. Now, when we start to speak about emotions, then it becomes very confusing. Because according to science, it's not really clear how many emotions are actually there. There are different kind of theories. Some they say there are 8 basic emotions. Others say, no, there are 30 to 40,000 different emotions. Then there is the wheel of emotions. But Krishna, he's very practical. He summarizes it in 3. Vita, Raga, Bhaya, Krodha. Krishna says that there are basically 3 kinds of emotions. The first one, Raga, attachment. Those things which are born out of attachments to this material world. Bhaya, fear. And Srila Prabhupada in the purport, this text 410 in the Bhagavad Gita, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says we have fear about our personal identity. Because we are so confused about who am I. Unless we have a clear understanding that I'm an eternal spiritual soul. We may have these confusing identities about our existence in this world and what to speak about relating to a personal God. So people are afraid of that. And Krodha. Krodha means anger. And this anger is born out of frustration because we try to enjoy in this world, but we don't find ultimate peace and happiness. Yes?
What is about love? Is it not an emotion?
It's an emotion. Absolutely. Yeah, I come to that. So Krishna says that these are the 3 categories of which all emotions are born. Attachments, anger, and fear. So if you want to make a shift into positive emotions, which are related with our practice of Krishna consciousness, then there is a border which we have to surpass. Yeah? And that border is gratitude. To develop an attitude of gratitude. Because it's very easy to blame the world, others, and circumstances for our present situations. But if we can see Krishna's loving hand behind everything, and that these circumstances, they serve us in the best way to move forward in our life, then we can develop gratitude. And gratitude is like that threshold into positive emotions. Everything else is born from there. Forgiveness, compassion, and love. And the easiest way to make that shift into positive emotions is if we change our perspective. Because we have to expect tribulations in this material world. Krishna, he put a certificate on the material world. And he said it's Dukkhalam Ashashvatam. It's temporary. And it's miserable. So don't expect to become happy by just being engaged in the material world. It's not a place of happiness. But it's a place where we can transform our emotions so that actually with our consciousness we are already in the spiritual world. The spiritual world doesn't mean we have to travel to another planet. It's something which we have to cultivate first and foremost within our heart. Krishna, he wants to enter our heart and perform his pastimes there. So therefore, the process of Krishna consciousness is actually all about the transformation of the heart. And transformation means to move into the big mind where the mind is dominated by positive emotions. And the easiest way to do this is to develop a long-term perspective. Because things are always difficult in the moment. But if we see the progress which we are doing gradually, then we can have again a positive outlook and attitude. Patanjali, in his Yoga Sutras, he gives a practice how we can instantly make a shift in our consciousness from negative to positive. And he calls that Pratibhaksha Bhavana, which means opposite thinking. When a situation happens which disturbs us initially, then consciously we can make a choice and say, okay, let's look at it from a different perspective. I'm angry now, but why am I angry? And what would be the opposite if I'm not angry? How would I act, behave, think for my best self, for my best version? Because, as we said, we have these samskaras, these impressions in our mind, which make us act in a certain way, unconsciously, like just by default. Now just imagine, if you do something repeatedly, again and again, what's going to happen in your mind?
You will think it is good, it's correct.
It's correct.
Saturated.
Yes. It becomes a pattern. Yeah? It becomes our default way or mode of acting. So we reinforce these impressions in our mind by our activities. And what happens if you act opposite to that? Then you're going to create new pathways how to make decisions. And that's something which you find in neuroplasticity, that our brain has the ability to create new pathways. You can create new connections in your brain, which by training those, by repeating those, you may act in the future in a different way. You can imagine, like, there's a small river, some water, and when it's raining, then it becomes filled. And then often rivers, they go out of their normal stream and they make this small kind of, what's the proper English word for that? Small streams, which going on the side. Yeah. But when the water is withdrawn again, they're going to dry up or they're shut by earth again. But if water flows constantly, again and again, then it becomes broader, it becomes deeper. In the same way, if we repeat certain patterns, then these impressions in our mind, they become more deep. And this works for negative as well as for positive. So we want to focus on the positive. Therefore, Pratibhaksha Bhavana, to consciously make a choice when a negative thought comes, to say, okay, what would be the opposite to that? And then make that impression, and it becomes, after time, it becomes a new way how we act. Which means we made a shift from a negative emotion into a positive emotion. And why gratitude is so important? Because gratitude means I accept. We don't know the reason for all these things that are happening in our lives. But if we have acceptance, then we can make the best out of a situation. And we can also see Krishna's hand behind that. Krishna made an arrangement for me to improve myself. Tate nukampam susamikshamano. Lord Brahma, he knew he made some mess, but he understood that actually Krishna put him in a certain situation that he can remember him. And that's the goal of all our practice in Krishna consciousness, to remember Krishna. Especially to remember Krishna at the time of death. Therefore, we have now, in that state of being conscious, we have the ability to train our mind to remember Krishna. So easier said than done, because we are all busy people, aren't we? What about your life? You are very favorable. You can sit here at 8:15 in the morning in the Krishna temple and hear from Srimad Bhagavatam. While all the other, I don't know how many, but 300,000 people living in the city of Zurich are somewhere out in the trains, in the trams, on their way to work. So we are very favorable that we have this moment to absorb ourselves in the Srimad Bhagavatam. But we can make a choice. We have that freedom of choice. Krishna, he will never compromise with our free will. Krishna, he is known as Hari. Hari is the one who takes away things from us. But one thing Krishna will never take away. This is our free will. So we have a capacity to make decisions which are favorable. And I'm going to share with you one tool which you don't find in our books, but I think it's something very much related. It's called the Eisenhower matrix. Who has heard about that already? It's also known as the important urgent quadrant. So this gentleman Eisenhower, he was one of the presidents of the United States. And he was known for being very effective, very productive. And he summarized his methodology into these quadrants. Now, typically in this world, when we speak about activities, there are activities which are important or less important, and urgent or less urgent. So let's go to the combination of these important and urgent constellations, which makes like 4 types. And I'm going to ask you for some examples. You can share personally from your own life or whatever comes to your mind. So first, activities which are neither important nor urgent. What could that be? It's very difficult to ask devotees such kind of questions because they have already eliminated all of those. So scrolling to social media, do you think that's something important?
Yes, it can be if you get good information.
Okay. Is it something very urgent? What about watching the latest Netflix series? Is it something important? Is it urgent?
Maybe 10% is important. 90% isn't.
There may be some little wisdom may be there. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. But in general, we can say these things, they're maybe not important and also not so urgent. Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subramanian ki jai, Shri Shri Gaura ki jai. So therefore, because they're neither important nor urgent, what can we do with them? We can just delete them, eliminate them from our life. So what about activities which are not important but urgent? What could that be?
Going to buy food.
To buy food.
A pipe breaks in the temple.
Yeah. It depends. I mean, if the water spills all over,
Oh no, that's important energy, yeah.
then it becomes important. We had that situation when the bathrooms were renovated in the Prabhu Ashram. There was one worker, he was very enthusiastic in demolishing a wall, but he was not so attentive that there was a pipe. So he hit the pipe and water was flowing throughout the whole temple. So that became important and urgent. Yeah. Our health, for example. When we are young, we think, no, I don't have to take care of my health. I'm healthy. So activities which are... No, sorry, that example was wrong with the health. That would be in the next category. Things which are important but not urgent. Our health is important. But while we are young, we say, no, I'm fine. I don't have to do some exercises. I don't have to care about my diet.
It depends on education or family.
Uh-huh.
Some cultures are different.
Yes. What else comes to your mind? Things which are important but not urgent?
Like in management, for example, register as a religious entity
Mm-hmm.
is not that urgent. It's something you do, for years. It might take years, but it's very important.
Yeah.
Education.
Education. My niece, she's 13, and I just visited them. She hates school. She doesn't see any reason why she should go to school. She's arguing with the teachers, what they want from her. So she understands that, okay, it's important for the future, but at the moment I have different interests, so it's not urgent for me. Now, how to convince a teenager about school is important.
No chance.
The last category, things which are important and urgent. What could that be? What is important and urgent in life?
Becoming Krishna consciousness.
Absolutely, that's the top, isn't it? Yeah. But where does our Krishna consciousness mainly take place? In which kind of category? We understood it's important, huh? But not so urgent. That could be for later in life. Now I'm young, now I want to enjoy. Or we understood that I have problems. It's urgent, but the importance may still be too low. Now, where should our Krishna consciousness ideally be? It should be important and it should be urgent. So how can we make that switch? Remember, what we're speaking about is developing that long-term perspective in life. So how do we make that switch, that our Krishna consciousness really becomes important and urgent? I give you 3 steps. We can reflect on those and we can expand or elaborate on those. So the first one is starting from ourselves. We have to become reflective about our life. That's what we said, like we're living mainly on autopilot. We are not really present in what we're doing. And because that became a habit, we're not questioning this anymore. So therefore, first we have to become reflective about who am I, where am I, what am I supposed to do? Now, what kind of practices are you using to reflect on your own life? And I'm not speculating here anything. That's one of the processes which Krishna recommends in the Bhagavad Gita. It's called Svadhyaya. Svadhyaya means to meditate on yourself. Not in the sense that you're the supreme person, the center of the universe, Krishna remains there, but to reflect about our lives, to meditate on our lives. So what are you doing already or planning to do to become more introspective about your life? Do you have any practices? Have you thought about that already, that it could be something?
Reveal your mind.
To reveal one's mind,
I go to swim to the river.
to go and swim in the river. So, revealing the mind. That's one of the principles which Rupa Goswami establishes for the exchange between devotees. To open one's mind and also to be available for another person who wants to reveal their mind. Are you doing that? Do you have someone whom you have trust in, that you can speak openly, that you are heard, understood? It's important in Krishna consciousness to have such a relationship, to develop friendships. I want to suggest another practice which you could do, which is journaling. Does anyone have experience with journaling? Do you know what journaling is? Journaling is you start to write. You may have a prompt, a kind of question, and then you start to write, reflect on that question related to yourself. Now, something magic happens there. Because reflection, what does reflection mean? Reflection means you put something out and put it on a kind of canvas where you can see it. Like, can you see what is in your mind? Not really. You can think what is in your mind, but you cannot see your thoughts. They are subtle. But once you start writing what is in your mind, then it becomes visible in front of you, like here. Words written on paper. So you can reflect what is in your mind by putting it into words which you put on paper. And that paper acts like a mirror of your mind. It's very powerful. And you may be surprised that what you wrote a few seconds before, you have not even thought about it. Because writing has that ability to go into a deeper level of your mind, which your thoughts can access. So I'd like to inspire you to become more reflective in your life and try this simple exercise of writing. You can do free writing. You do not even have to have a prompt. You just sit down with an empty paper and a pen, and you just start to write. And you're going to be amazed what happens. And let not the intelligence interfere that you question what you're writing. You just write. And later you can read. It's magic. Yeah? So that's the first step if you want to have a more long-term perspective to life, that we reflect about our life. And the suggestion would be to do that through the process of writing. Then what else we can do? The second, to create a more long-term perspective of life, to make changes in our life. Because maybe we are in circumstances which are just not favorable anymore. We're living in a condition which is limiting us. Now, here again some magic. Because often we are reluctant, we have some resistance to make a change in our life. Because we are again afraid of uncertainty. We all require a certain level of stability which gives us that security. But sometimes this security becomes our own prison, and we have to break free. We have to become courageous again and do something new. Now, if we can do this voluntarily, that would be good. But sometimes Krishna has to make some arrangements in our life. He takes something away which is just not favorable anymore. Now, what do? We're holding on to it. We're getting into this argument with Krishna. Until we realize, yes, it's time for me to move on. So therefore, it's very important that we see the signs in our life. What is going on in the outside world? Where do I have to adjust? And not just externals, also attitudes which we have. But it's important that we situate ourselves in a position of strength, because it's already difficult enough to maintain our existence, so then at least we should be in a position where we can act according to our best interest. So the first practice for having a more long-term perspective to life is that we become reflective. The second is that we adjust our external circumstances in a more favorable way. And the third one is very important, to stay in the association of devotees. To look for that like-minded association amongst the devotees, where, like Prabhu said, where we can reveal our mind. Because devotees are multifaceted. Yeah? There are so many different types of devotees. Big ones, tall ones, skinny ones, fat ones, whatever. Coming from this country, from that country. We are all very different. And I always said, if it wouldn't be for the cause of Krishna consciousness, then with many of the devotees, I think I wouldn't have a relationship, because we are just so different. But what connects us is Krishna. So therefore we have a common purpose. That's unity in diversity. But still, within that multinational environment, we have to find these deep relationships. Because let's expect difficulties on our path of Krishna consciousness. And then we have to turn to someone who really understands us, where we can open our heart, reveal our mind, without having to be afraid that next morning there's a Facebook post which speaks about our inner world. So sadhu sangha, to have that like-minded association, that encouraging, inspiring association. And not just taking association, but also being that association for others. That aspect of service is very important in Krishna consciousness, that we extend ourselves for the well-being of others. So, receiving association and giving association. And in this way, we can mold our life in a way where the important and urgent becomes more prominent. Because we have that support system around us. Yeah. On our own strengths, we know we are limited. The weakness of the heart, which Krishna speaks about, can overcome us at every moment. So therefore, we do our best endeavor, but we know at the end, it's Krishna's mercy who carries us forward. Now, Krishna's mercy is unconditional. We always think that if I do my spiritual practice, my sadhana, then I have that kind of exchange with Krishna. He will give me some mercy. But Krishna is not working like that. Krishna, he gives us his mercy unconditionally, out of love. But why sadhana is so important? Because it brings us into the present mind. And that's what the Bhagavatam is speaking here about. We have to learn to control our mind to be in the present moment. Because that meeting with Krishna can only happen in the present moment. So therefore, we have to be present when Krishna showers his mercy. Therefore, we engage ourselves in spiritual practice that our mind is focused, is attentive on Krishna. But it's not a kind of deal which you're making with Krishna. I chant my 16 rounds, I follow my principles, I do whatever the temple president says, and then the mercy gonna come. No, that's too cheap. But if we have the proper inner attitude, then Krishna, he wants to reciprocate. And if we are engaged in devotional service, then we are really present when that mercy comes. Like if you want to experience the sunshine, the sun is unconditional to everyone. The sun shines on every object of this world. But if we stay at home in our bed and have our curtains closed, the sunshine will not reach us. So therefore we have to be alert, we have to stay awake in Krishna consciousness. That we will be fully present in that moment when Krishna showers his mercy onto us. We're going to stop here. Thank you for your attention. I see you're not finished yet. How's the situation? Okay.
10 minutes.
So then let's open for question, comments. Do you have any comments, questions, concerns?
Yes, because you told that with the purified mind you can achieve the aim of life, so could you remind me what is the aim of life?
So what's the aim of life? What's for you the aim of life at this present moment?
To die and
So to stay alive until you die.
yes.
And what you're going to do in between.
I don't know. That's why I came here.
So good that you're here. So let's clarify that. So let's go a little bit further back. What's actually the purpose of this creation? Why this material world exists? Is this a good question? Have you asked yourself that question before? Have you found an answer already? So then let's hear from Srimad Bhagavatam. Because in the third canto, there's a discussion. The third canto is very much related with creation of this material world. So what's the cause of this creation? Who's the creator? Let's start with this. Who created this whole material world? Krishna. Okay, so are we all common on that? We agree that Krishna is the supreme creator? Good. But why should Krishna create this material world while there exists a spiritual world which is much larger than this universe is here? Who wanted to enjoy?
The jivas, us, the living entities.
Okay, so we living beings, we wanted to enjoy. And one of the conditions was we wanted to enjoy independent of Krishna. Now, this became a problem in the spiritual world because there Krishna is in the center. Everyone is focused on him, to giving him pleasure. So that kind of desire which we developed to enjoy independent from Krishna cannot be fulfilled in the spiritual world. Now, I said before, Krishna never interferes with our free will. So, therefore Krishna, when we developed the desire to enjoy independent from him, he had to create an environment where we can fulfill that desire. And that's exactly the material world. But there's a condition, like the small letters in a contract. What we said before. What's the nature of this material world?
Suffering.
It's temporary and full of suffering. So our intention to enjoy independent from Krishna, how to say it properly? Let's go from another direction. So we have the desire, but here in this world we come to the conclusion that it actually doesn't make sense. Yeah. So therefore the material world is the place where we can experience our enjoyment as independent from Krishna, and then at the same time rectify our attitude. So therefore we don't find real happiness in this world, because it's just not our natural environment. Now, Krishna doesn't leave us alone. He created this world, and he gave all facilities so that we gradually can turn again towards him. For this we have the scriptures. For this we have the association of saintly people. They remind us what is the ultimate goal or purpose of life. And for this we have to become clear, what is my real identity? Because as long we identify with this body and mind, we see everything in relation to ourselves. That we can enjoy it and that we can continue to enjoy it, we have to control it. Yeah? That's called conditioned life. But through the process of Krishna consciousness, by receiving transcendental knowledge, gradually we purify our heart. And we said before, purification of the heart means to change or to shift our emotions from negative to positive again. And the negative emotions categorized as material attachments, fear and anxieties. Positive emotions starting from gratitude, developing into forgiveness, compassion, love, and so on. So therefore the goal of life is to first of all to purify our heart again, and then develop that spontaneous love for Krishna. And that's the qualification to go back into the spiritual world, where there's eternity, where there's happiness. So what do you think about that outlook of life?
So it means family is not important,
Oh, family is very important.
but to have kids and to stay, to live your material, how to say, kids and grandkids, your material part is not important.
Would you be able to do that?
I mean, yes, I mean, most of the people are able to do that.
But would you be able to do that like from your heart, or just like intellectually, okay, that would be the best to just leave everything behind?
No, I mean, my question is to multiply yourself, to create a family, to have kids and grandsons, it's not important because it's material. So it's better to stay alone, single, purify your heart, become spiritual, and back to spiritual world.
If this is your nature and you can do that, maybe that's an easy way. Huh? But if we have a desire and we just suppress our desire, so what can we expect in which way it will come out again? It will come out in a negative way.
I don't see about desire, but about what is important from your lecture.
So your conclusion is to give up everything and just renounce after what you've heard today from my lecture?
So do you understand correctly?
No. Then we have to start from zero again. Because what is important, I said that we position ourselves or situate ourselves in a position of strength. That according to our psychophysical nature, that we situate ourselves in a condition from where we can advance. Because Krishna, he doesn't recommend we should artificially renounce something in this world. So Krishna, he created all the facilities so that we can go to different phases and learn our lessons and then make a conclusion about what is the purpose of my existence. And Krishna established a system which is called Varna Ashram Dharma. It's a society which is categorized according to activity and phases of life. So we have a certain kind of nature, and it's important to engage that nature in activities. And the beautiful thing about Varna Ashram is that Krishna is in the center of all these activities. And the ashrams are different phases or stages in life, beginning with brahmacharya, who is student life, grihastha, who is family life, vanaprastha, retired life, and sannyasa, which is the renounced phase of life. So, what you said, we should renounce everything, which means we immediately jump to that final stage of life where we don't have any desires anymore, which is actually not possible. We will always have desires, but we can purify our desires. So would you be ready today if I tell you, give up all your activities and just renounce?
Very ready, 100%.
You're ready 100%? Adhikesh Prabhu, you have some kind of engagement for her? She's ready to renounce everything, to move into the temple today.
Yes.
to give up all her possessions and never go back from where she came from.
Well, I wouldn't say that, never go back. But yeah, we have some engagement, that's what Krishna recommends in Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, not to walk away from
Mhm.
the world, but to do one's duty. Right?
Mhm. So that's the important point, that we have to be engaged according to our duty. What's my responsibility? We cannot run away from something because we feel it's not comfortable anymore for me. So the temple is also not a place where we can run away and find some shelter. It's a conscious decision in a certain phase of our life. Yeah. And many, they come in an early phase of life to become a student, to learn about Krishna consciousness, to learn about a practice which they can later continue in family life and then gradually come to retired life. So the important point is that according to our nature, we find our proper place in this world. And then with all our heart to accept that responsibility, because that will become the means to purify our heart. Yeah? And we're not promoting that engage in the material world and expect full happiness. No, that's not the point. But the experience will give us realizations. And then we can make decisions, what is really important for me. That's what I said, we have to have a long-term perspective to life. We don't want to limit ourselves by just saying, okay, that's comfortable, I'm going to stay here forever. So life is progressive. The nature of this world is to be dynamic. Right? There's constant movement. So let me ask you again. What's your next step like? Because you said you would be ready to renounce. So what I just shared now about finding our proper place in life. So what's your relationship to renunciation after hearing this?
I mean, it's your lecture.
So what would be your lecture?
So, I don't know.
If you don't know, then you have to accept whatever I have to say. If you don't have better options, and what I was speaking, I was not speaking from my own mind, I was speaking from the scriptures. So I don't say you have to believe what I say, but whatever you find in the scriptures, at least we should reflect on that and find some truth in it. So when Srila Prabhupada came to the West, he didn't come with the attitude, you all have to accept what I'm saying. He just wanted to give a positive alternative. And I think this should be our attitude when we hear from the scriptures. We should see, okay, what would be a better alternative to my present stage of life? What can I take, reflect on, and then gradually put into practice? And most of us, we are convinced by experience, Every day someone else is sitting here and speaking from the scriptures. And yeah, it's mixed with personal realizations, which may not be your present realizations. So therefore you don't have to accept whatever I say. But at least to reflect on it and then see what is relevant for you and start to engage with it, to practice, so that you can come to your own realizations. So the last four, any questions or comments?
One more.
Then we would conclude here. Thank you very much for your attention. Kandara Chimad Bhagavatam. Oh, excuse me.
It was an interesting point you were making, that we are fearful of our identity.
Yes.
We're fearful of, I got that. Sorry, that was interesting because fear to understand who we really are, because in a certain sense we're afraid to come in front of Krishna with all our impurities, right? All our addictions and our contaminations. It's embarrassing for us to go in front of Krishna, isn't it? Is that the fear you were talking about, or what were you referring to exactly?
Yeah, I was referring to Srila Prabhupada's purport to Bhagavad Gita 4.10, where he explains that these categories of material, these three categories of material conditioning, fear within there is related with fear of our personal existence. And that's what Prabhupada said. Yeah. He didn't elaborate much more on that in the purport. So therefore it's interesting that we reflect ourselves on that and what that could mean, and then discuss it amongst devotees too.
I think he refers to, yes, actually impersonalists are impersonalists because out of fear.
Yeah.
With this fear of becoming a person, they have so much experience that to be a person means suffering. So they think, if I go to the spiritual world and I keep being a person, it's going to be suffering.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the Prabhupada's point.
Yeah, actually he speaks about the Mayavadis in that purport also. And in combination with both, with Krodha and Bhaya, with anger and fear. But let's see it from that perspective. Mayavadis are afraid of the personal existence because they cannot relate to it. It feels something. As you said, we are afraid to stand before Krishna with all our impurities. They are afraid of identifying with something which is actually not existing according to their conception. Yeah. Luckily, we are already over this. Huh?
Yeah,
Kind of. We are still some kind of impersonalists, yeah. But philosophically, we have understood that we are an eternal spiritual soul and have an eternal relationship with God. And the more we're going to put this into practice, and that's the beauty about engagement in devotional service, that we have practical means to engage our senses for Krishna. And as we said, like the sense perception, what we perceive with our senses, goes into this emotional mind. And emotions are very deep and strong experiences. Therefore, we can find that happiness in Krishna consciousness, because it engages our emotions. And the more we become aware, conscious of our emotions, then the more we live in a reality of Krishna consciousness. So to make that shift from the small mind into the big mind, from the conditioned mind into the liberated mind. And then, susukham kartum avyayam, then Krishna consciousness becomes very blissful. Then we are in the 75%, as you mentioned.
Is it also we don't like to be personalists because it means there's commitment, there's more, we fear that there's hurt. Like I become more personal with you, it's easier for you to enter my comfort zone and you hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it? I mean, we become impersonalists because we don't want to be bothered by anyone, right? Like, we don't want anyone to touch our deep in feelings. Right? We've been hurt so much. So yes, if we become more Krishna conscious, we get closer to Krishna, we get closer to all living entities, become more personalists, then we fear that we're going to suffer.
Mm.
Isn't it? Yeah.
That's a possible reason, yeah. And it's interesting, like, the moment we depersonalize something in this world, we get a kind of license to exploit it. Yeah. For example, killing animals. So you depersonalize animals. They don't have a soul, therefore you can do with them whatever you want. Nature, you depersonalize nature. There is no higher reason behind the existence of nature. Therefore we can exploit nature according to our desire. So we see that kind of Mayavad approach is something very detrimental. It's not just philosophical. It's very tangible how we relate to others, how we relate to Krishna's creation. So therefore, Prabhupada came to this Western world to eradicate this impersonalistic mentality. And that's within all of us, so we're not free from that. But the more we become aware, the more we can make the change of heart. Anyway, it's getting late, I mean, you have your schedule, I don't want to.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you. Kandaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhaktavinda ki jai.
Can you help me with this? I'm not sure if the office is open. Take this up. Yes, please. You want to take the shaman?